I think you guys have done incredible work by creating such a platform. And the fact that you guys are building a consulting initiative without any prior experience, without any prior platform to learn from, I think that just demonstrates the type of caliber of leaders that you have, and the type of leaders that you are, who have initiative and great leadership skills and the entrepreneurial and forward thinking that consulting firms and other firms look for. So today, my goal isn't just to tell you about my journey, but it's more for us to demystify what consulting actually is. I want to make it real for all of us in the room and also be able to share practical lessons from my experience. This is going to be a very personal presentation. I don't want it to be generic. Very personal presentation about my experience across consulting, strategy, banking, etc. And hopefully you'll be able to leave with something, whether it is an actionable step, something that you can use in your immediate, day-to-day discovery of your career journey. But whatever it might be, I hope that you guys leave with something. But if you don't take anything, let it be this, that your starting point is not a determination of your destination. You being in this room already says and speaks volumes about where you will land up one day. So I am going to share my screen. Please give me a thumbs up once you can all see it, and then I will get into the first slide of the day. Awesome. Thank you so much for the thumbs up. I note them. So who am I sitting in front of you? I think you guys received a bio about who I am, but just in a nutshell, I am a management consultant. I have an academic background in BCom Honors Investment Management and BCom Finance. I received both of these qualifications from the University of Johannesburg. They call that the glorified high school. I'm not sure what your thoughts are about that, but I think I turned out pretty great for someone who came out of there. So that is where I studied. I have professional experience across consulting and banking. So I just want to highlight, I think there's a bit of confusion. So strategy and is actually part of PwC. It is a subset of PwC where in their management consulting house, there is a place or there's a team called strategy and, which is basically the strategy house for the advisory department of PwC, just to demystify that. So sometimes my CV will say PwC, sometimes it will say strategy and, but it's all the same place. I also then have experience in banking from specifically Netbank. I recently actually just left Netbank to join PwC/strategy and once again. And I'm happy to take you through what that looks like. But before we get into that, other things about me, I am a digital content creator. I think that's how you guys found me. I am on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, where I share career information, career content, personal development content, and basically just navigating adulthood, because this is such a tricky journey. And I think we all need to hold each other's hands and learn from each other as we navigate it. And lastly, I am an Alan Gray Fellow. So I graduated into the association in 2021. Yes, 2021. So I'm an Alan Gray Fellow, and I am also the vice chairperson of a nonprofit organization called Where You're Able Foundation. So I am very busy. I do have a lot on my hands, but we're able to try and keep our head above the water each and every day. So obviously straight after varsity, I went into strategy and I joined their graduate program. Back in the day, it was a permanent placement. Things have changed since then, and I've seen a lot of consulting firms adopt this now, where they have a consulting graduate program that involves an 18-month rotation contract instead of just giving you a permanent placement. There are pros and cons to both, and happy to go into those at some point should anybody want to pick my brain on what I think the pros and cons are of those. But that's where I started. I started as a junior associate, and then I got promoted to senior associate about 2 years into that journey. Then I left to go into banking for 2 years and a bit, and now I am back. So I've been in the workforce for about 5-6 years now, 5.5. years now. I think that also exposes my age. I hope I still look like an infant, but nonetheless, that is a bit about me. I'm going to pause there. Are there any questions, or do you want me to then head over into the next slide? I will take silence as golden. Oh, yes, Dumelo, Hanyane. We'll start with Hanyane. I think your hand was up first.
Hi, Rorisang. How are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. I just want to know, how did the transition from consulting to banking happen? What were you doing in banking that coincided with what you were doing previously when you were a consultant before you went to Netbank?
Okay. So when I left PwC to go to Netbank, the original plan, I'm going to share what my original plan was and then what actually happened. The original plan was for me to become a strategy analyst. So I got hired as a strategy analyst to go there. And basically, I wanted to hone in on that strategic thinking, be able to develop strategies that inform business decisions, etc. But life didn't turn out that way. There were a lot of restructures within the bank at the time that I joined, and I endured 3 restructures. In the 2.5 years that I was at Netbank, I endured 3 restructures, and that completely changed my role. So from being a senior strategy analyst, I then morphed into being a senior product manager. Same, but different. I think strategy is only a part of what product management is. But basically, you feel like you're running your own business within the bank where you are in charge of a specific product. And then from there, I also went a bit more technical as a product owner. And all of these changes took place because nobody else was up for the job when people either resigned or retired. So I happened to be the youngest person on my team who was active enough and willing enough to stretch myself to learn across these different roles. I don't take that move for granted. Really, I learned a lot. And I think it has also helped me in my transition back into consulting because it's expanded my way of thinking. But that is essentially what I was busy with at Netbank. And product management is a completely different ballgame on its own. We maybe might need to set up another session to take you through what that entails. But it is essentially having the end-to-end ownership of a product, managing its performance, making sure it's being enhanced, making sure it's up to date with global trends, etc. That's essentially what I was doing in Netbank.
All right. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. There was another hand. I just forgot who it was from. Dumelo. Yes.
Good day, everyone. Mr. Hanyane asked the same question that I was going to ask, so
Okay.
no further questions.
Happiness. Thank you so much. B. Malevane.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I actually have a question.
Yes.
So let's say, for instance, not for instance, I'm studying international relations. I would love to move into investment banking, Arta. Do I have to go and study something that has to do with banking, or how do I engineer a way into investment banking from politics to investment banking?
So those are 2 very different industries. So I would suggest that you study something along those lines. It is investment banking in particular is a very intricate career to go into. There's a lot of background knowledge that you need to build the technical skills that are required to get into investment banking. So it's very unlikely that you'll have an easy transition moving from politics into investment banking. They are on 2 completely different ends of the spectrum. It's not impossible, but I do think if you're not going to study something to get there, you're probably going to have to take the long way around, where you try and do something administrative within an investment banking firm, and then job shadow, do on the job training to get there. I don't know how many years that is going to take you, but I would suggest studying something, because judging by the content that I learned in my honors degree in investment management, That's not stuff I would have been able to learn on the job. It's quite technical, very quantitative heavy. I wouldn't suggest you just jumping into it, but if you are willing to take the long way around where you start from the bottom up and do a whole lot of on-the-job training and get enough mentors in the industry, etc., then perhaps that might be an avenue that could work. But top of my head, I would go and study.
Maybe if let's say I would just do my honors in investment or because politics, so it has to do it. I could choose modules that are related to economics. Then later,
Right.
when I'm doing my honors, I can still. Is it fine like that or?
Yeah, you can. So if you are able to take electives that are economic and finance based, that business acumen is already a step in the right direction. You might have to do some sort of a bridging course for a year. I'm not sure how UNISA is set up, but you might need to do some sort of a bridging course after your undergrad, or have additional modules to get there, but potentially speak to one of the faculty members that might be able to help you structure the remainder of your undergrad degree, and help you make sure that you're set up for success when going into an investment honors degree.
Okay, thank you.
Happy.
Yes,
Dimple?
I'm here.
Hi Rorisang, how are you?
Well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I first of all, I'd like to say thank you for this opportunity. My question was, you mentioned that you did what do you call it, a BCom in honors in investment management, right?
Yes.
So I'm currently what do you call it, a student, a BCom in finance student. I want to ask, can you somehow probably paint a picture of the things that you did in BCom honors, because you said that you learned technical, there are a lot of
Yeah.
technical stuff that you learned. May you kindly outline for me what those things are? Thank you so much.
Sure. So investment management, like I mentioned, is very technical. So what you can expect there is learning how to work with derivatives, working in bull and bear markets, working with valuations. There's a whole lot of numbers. Think numbers, not just the business acumen fluffy stuff that you learn in business management, etc. It is think of a combination of economics, stats, accounting. What other modules did we do? It's been such a long time that I actually can't remember, but it's very number heavy. It's very number heavy. You will still have economics, you will still have accounting. I'm lying. You won't have accounting in your honors degree. You'll have economics, you'll have stats, you'll have quantitative finance. That was the hardest module for me. Quantitative finance, and there are two others that I'm forgetting, but think a combination of accounting, economics, stats, and quants all together.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Awesome, it's a pleasure. Happiness. So let us, yes, Sitole. Sorry.
Hello, everyone. Can I ask, it's sort of like a follow-up to the question Limpo asked. So how did those things that you learned in your honors, how do they help in consulting? How do they relate to consulting and to the position you currently occupy? Thank you.
Sure. I am going to touch on this in a bit more detail later on in the presentation, but essentially it helps with the analytical thinking. It helps you break down complex problems, which is what you do every day as a consultant. You are busy solving for complex problems, you're thinking analytically, you're analyzing your clients, you're understanding their business performance, you're understanding their growth and how you can build growth strategies for them. And all of this sums up into the foundation that my investment management degree created for me. You don't need to study investments to become a consultant. I remember when I first joined consulting, there was someone who was a psychology graduate who then, moved into consulting. He then did a master's in something that is more commerce related, but he had a BA foundation. So it's not doom and gloom if you don't happen to be in quote unquote the right degree, but there there are benefits to being in a commerce-related honors degree. They usually will take you with an honors degree. Very few candidates get in with an undergrad. So I'm hoping that this question is coming from an honors perspective rather than an undergrad perspective. But it built that analytical and complex thinking muscle that is required to thrive in the consulting space. Hanyane?
Sorry, just a follow-up question.
Yes.
If analytical thinking is important, then wouldn't someone with like an engineering degree or something
Yes.
in math or stats also have a easier time getting into consulting?
That is correct. About 90% of our team have engineering backgrounds. Okay, 90 is a bit much. Let's say 60-40 split. We have chemical engineers, mechanical engineers who are consultants, and they're thriving in that space, who didn't necessarily want to go into industry. Some started in engineering and then decided that it's not for them and they want to be more on the business side of things, and they're thriving very well. To be honest, I sometimes envy them because of how they think. Engineers think in a completely different way, man. Like, I think in my next life, I should probably study something engineering related. They do really well in consulting. You find some doctors who no longer want to practice, who actually leave their medical space to move into consulting as well. So anything maths, quants, all of that stuff, we look for, particularly in the consulting industry.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to continue. A lot of questions, or rather a lot of people ask how I ended up in consulting, and they think it's because I had a perfect plan. I got into consulting by mistake, but I think my curiosity is what got me there. And because of that, I'm grateful for the journey, but I didn't know what consulting was when I actually applied for the graduate program. I just saw that my honors degree was listed as one of the degrees that they were looking for. I applied, and I only figured out what consulting was during the interview process. So you guys are in a bit more of an advantageous position because you actually will know after this presentation what it is, rather than myself. And I would like to also just highlight that since I started in consulting, my journey between, UJ, strategy, and NetBank has basically been driven by curiosity and resilience, and just having a mind that wants to explore, but more than anything, taking an opportunity as it comes. So that's how I ended up here. Continuously learning, thinking strategically, as I've mentioned, and also just making sure that you are out of your comfort zone, taking those opportunities that you ordinarily wouldn't, and stepping out of your comfort zone. So consulting wasn't necessarily, when you ask a child what they want to do and they say they want to be a doctor, it wasn't my first aspiration. But as I continued to discover more about the career, I ended up falling in love with it. And that's probably why they can't stay, or rather, I can't stay away from the consulting industry or consulting profession, because it's just as great as it is, and every day is a school day. So I discovered it through curiosity. I think a lot of you guys are in a more advantageous position by actually knowing what it is beforehand. Okay, so let us move on. So how did I then navigate my professional path? So we've spoken about where I studied, we spoke about where I started my career, we spoke about where I went and how I've then come back. So like I mentioned with while answering one of the previous questions, is that at UJ, I was able to develop the analytical thinking and problem solving skill set, and that has been able to serve me still until today. The finance components help me be able to think a bit more logically, think about trade-offs, economies of scale, etc. Risk management was one of to answer somebody else's question, I think now I remember, risk management and portfolio management was one of my other modules in honors. It helped me be able to pick up on risks that companies would make based off of the decisions that they made. These are all incredibly valuable in consulting. But then the most important part of this journey, particularly me jumping in between these two different firms, is that pivoting is the best thing that I did for my career. Not only did it push me out of my comfort zone, it also helped me stretch my thinking and also build my network. So I was able to work, within the product house, but then I was also able to then get exposure to advisory. I was getting exposure to transformation. And I think in the day and age that we live in, particularly with the digital transformations that we're seeing and that we're experiencing day by day, it's an exciting time to be in any finance field, in any consulting field. Really, it's an exciting time to be there. More than anything, the one thing I wanted to highlight is that my journey to date and this professional path that I've been on was only going to be possible if I muted and silenced imposter syndrome, because there were so many opportunities where I felt like I didn't belong in that room. There were so many opportunities, especially as a young Black person, young Black woman, particularly because both banking and consulting are male-dominated industries. There were so many times where I felt that I should not be there. I'm not qualified to be there. I don't, know enough to be there. But when I look back at it, I think being able to silence that voice inside has helped me then navigate my consulting career, my banking career, and everything in between. So the rooms that intimidated me the most are actually the rooms that accelerated my development. These are the rooms that accelerated my career growth. And I definitely don't take that for granted. At the bottom, I just want to highlight this key takeaway that each step of my journey added a new capability. I'm able to run a business from back to front because of my banking experience. I'm able to work in teams because of my consulting experience. I'm able to think critically and in a structured manner and be able to verbalize and vocalize and communicate my thoughts, both written, verbally, and anything of those sorts, because of consulting and the skills that I've built there. I'm able to think of hypotheses while I develop strategies for clients. I'm able to be at the forefront of any transformation engagement. These are massive things that are taking the world by storm right now. And consulting helps you remain relevant. To be honest, I think it's one of the careers that will take the longest to die with the rise of AI and digitization, because in as much as you can do all this research, there's certain types of thinking, certain ways that consultants structure their deliverables that can't be learned by machines. So these are all things that helped me navigate my professional career, and each and every step helped me learn something different. Awesome. I'm going to then move on to what it actually means to be a consultant. I think social media has really glamorized it, and I think I try my best to make it as real as possible. What people think it's building decks, and yes, this is true. You live, breathe, sleep PowerPoint and Excel, depending on the types of teams that you happen to work in. People think it's airports, fancy hotels, a lot of travel, and advising CEOs, which, yes, it's not incorrect, but there's more to it than this. This is just the tip of the iceberg. When it comes to actual consulting, what you're doing is helping businesses, helping organizations solve complex problems that they are dealing with through a structured way and helping them execute on these. You want to see the value that you're putting in being implemented and executed by your clients so that their bottom line can increase. You want to see them, increasing their revenue lines so that they can create more jobs for people within the job industry and the job market. All of that helps you feel fulfilled. And I think, just to be very transparent, that's another reason why I moved back into consulting. So in as much as I learned a lot in banking, I couldn't see the bigger picture. The bank is so big that the work that you do, in as much as it might be valuable, you're not able to see the benefits of the outcome of your work. Yes, the performance of your product might increase. You might be able to lead a squad effectively, etc. But you're not able to say, Netbank or whatever financial institution you're working for, it was able to provide this many dividends or pay out this many dividends to its shareholders because of the work that I did. Whereas in consulting, you're actually able to see the real value of the work that you do. And I think that's what keeps me fulfilled within the consulting sphere. It is very gruesome. It is a very hectic industry to be in, but it's worth it when you see the outcomes. So you're helping them be clear on the problems that they need to solve. You're helping them understand the simplicity behind the fluff. That way they're able to execute and make decisions that they need to make in order for them to grow their business and then turn it around or grow it or scale it as they need to. Hanyane?
Uh, just a question. In terms
Yes.
of, if we're talking about your long-term career growth and what you think would be best, would it be better to start at a small consultancy firm where I'm guessing you have more exposure to a lot of things? Because usually with startups and small companies,
Mm.
what happens is you could have the title of data analyst or consultant, but be doing a wide range of things.
Yeah.
Or is it better to start at like a bigger firm like your PwC, BCG, and McKinsey, if we're talking about your long-term career
Mm.
aspects? Yeah.
So this is purely my opinion, and I'm going to share my pros and cons. I would be hesitant to start in a small boutique consulting firm because you're forced to specialize a lot more quickly. For example, if it's a consulting firm that only specializes in data transformation or digital transformation, rather, then that's all you'll know. Whereas within a bigger consulting firm, there are many teams in the advisory department where you can explore mining, you can explore energy utilities and resources, you can explore where I am, payment transformation, you can explore fit for growth, which is basically cost delayering and valuations of companies. You can explore mergers and acquisitions. There's a lot that you can explore. So starting out, to be honest, as a 21-year-old, when I started my career, I didn't know what I wanted to be. I didn't know what I was passionate about. Yes, I happened to then start in PwC and be able to find my love for payments and payments transformation. Great. But had I gone to a small boutique consulting firm, I might not have been able to get that exposure. So those are the pros and cons of a small and large consulting firm. However, if you know what you're passionate about, I would then go to a small consulting firm where, like you're saying, if you're in a startup, you can learn a plethora of skills at an accelerated pace because you have exposure to multiple roles within the firm. So there are pros and cons, and I think you then need to choose which one you want. If you want to be an entrepreneur one day and run your own thing, then go into a small boutique consultancy where you learn everything. That way you don't have to build a massive team when you start your startup, and you're able to then go there, run the show by yourself. And as the business grows, you're able to then bring on more people. But if that's not necessarily a short-term goal for you, but rather a long-term goal for you, for me, I would love to be in business one day, but it's not in my 5-year plan. It's maybe in my 10 or 15-year plan. Should it happen sooner? Great. But it's not necessarily something I'm working towards within the next 5 years. And that's why I'm okay, because I would have then just under 10 years of consulting under my belt, where then I would have achieved or explored a lot of skills and capabilities that allow me then to run my own startup or whatever the case might be. So there are pros and cons. It needs to be up to you where you want to go. If you're trying to just be in industry forever, be an exec of a bank or whatever, you don't necessarily need to start in a startup, unless if you're maybe trying to be the youngest head of a department by the time you're 30, then sure. But for the most part, for the most part, particularly in the traditional banks, it's very rare to find a 30-year-old exec. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. I've given you two sides of the coin. I've given you what I think and the pros and cons of the boutique firms versus the consulting firms, the bigger consulting firms. Another thing that I think I want to highlight is that the bigger consulting firms, you have exposure to international global counterparts. I could decide to move to Ireland tomorrow because PwC has an office in Ireland, as opposed to the smaller boutique firms where they might not be able to give me the stepping stone to move internationally if I want to. It's not impossible. It's just a bit harder because you can't just message someone on Teams and say, hey, is there a position open in your team in the US office or in the Canada office that I'd be able to explore? I hope that answers your question. Cool.
Thank you. Sorry, another follow-up question.
Sure.
Does that mean that a person who's interested, if we're talking the larger firms, a person who's interested in a plethora of things would do better at a larger firm?
I think so. I think so because it's easier to access the people that can expose you to those different things. Yeah, I would be wary, especially if you have a broad curiosity spectrum. I would be wary to go to a smaller boutique firm. You will get exposure, but not as much as what the big four firms would be able to give you.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions before I move on? Awesome. I'll take silence as golden. So a follow on then. So think of this as a Bimale Bane.
Okay, actually, I do have a question. Since
Yes.
I don't know about consultants, so I would love to know, do we need a specific degree for me to get into consulting or?
I'm not sure if you were here when I answered the question earlier to say your undergrad degree or your honors degree rather is not the doom and gloom. When I joined, there was someone on my team who had a BA degree. It's really, they don't, the qualification will only get you so far as a consultant. They want to know how you think. They want to know how you apply your thinking and how you solve problems. It doesn't matter. It might be a bit harder to get in with something that is not quantitative or engineering or stats or finance focused. It might be one step deeper. You might have to work an extra step harder, but it's not impossible. There are people that are thriving in consulting who don't even have a commerce degree, who don't even have a statistical or quantitative background. So I'm going to say it and say it again. You don't need a specific degree. Yes, consulting firms do look for specific degrees, but it doesn't mean that you won't get in if you apply with a different degree to what is on the list. Get your CV in the door. Get your foot in the door. Wow them in the interviews. That's what matters. Really, that is what matters.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Okay, so continuation of what consultants do. The core areas that you think about, and this obviously is a non-exhaustive list, you can go on and on, but you focus on a lot of growth strategy. You focus on market entry. If a company wants to get into a specific market, you help them with that. You're able to help them optimize their costs and their expenses. I spoke a little bit about digital transformation. That is probably one of the biggest growing or the fastest growing core areas within consulting and corporate as a whole right now. Another thing is operating models, especially after COVID. Companies have realized that they don't need as many people to do a certain task anymore. Now you have to come in and be able to help them restructure their operating model to work optimally for where the company wants to go into the future. Things like that. Transformation as well in general, not just digital transformation, but should they want to do big shifts within their company, if mandates are changing, if there's an acquisition that has taken place and they need people to help them with that transformation and that transition, these are things that you would be exposed to. This is just it's not set in stone, but these are things that you could experience within a week in the life of a consultant. I do post some of my days in the life of a consultant from time to time on my social media, which would help you see what, different iterations of this would be. But it's a whole lot of workshops with clients, helping them understand what to do based off of the analyses that we've done. It's a whole lot of research, stakeholder interviews if you need particular inputs from these stakeholders, brainstorming sessions with your internal team, and sometimes, depending on the nature of the engagement, sometimes even brainstorming with the client as well. A whole lot of teamwork. As a student, this was a big shock for me when I joined consulting. As a student, you mainly work independently. Besides the odd group project here and there, you're studying alone, you're doing assignments alone, you're attending class more so if you're in an online, predominantly online institution like you guys happen to be in, you're almost always alone. There's a lot of teamwork in consulting. You can't run away from people. You're then building recommendations. You're building storylines. A storyline is basically you saying, when I go to the client, this is the message I want to convey. How do I then make sure that this message comes out either in a written Word document report or in a PowerPoint presentation? What is that story that you need to build for your client to tell them what strategy they need to do, to tell them what costs are making their buckets leak a bit more? All of that is something that you do on a day-to-day basis. You're running steercos. You're sitting as maybe a silent voice within an exco meeting. All of these things are things that you do as a consultant. When you're a junior consultant, however, there's a lot of other admin heavy stuff that you do. You'll find yourself doing a lot of minute writing, a lot of research, a lot of it's all the small stuff, don't worry, you don't run around and get people coffee, but you do all the mundane tasks that the seniors don't want to do. And you'll find that the reporting line is a bit longer when you're at the bottom, when you're a junior, but the skills that you get there, the learning curve as a junior is so accelerated. To be honest, within your entire consulting career, regardless of the grade that you find yourself in, the tasks that you do on a day-to-day basis literally can transform the way that you think, do life, both in your personal and professional lives as well. Now, there's a lot of commerce students in this room, and a lot of you also then want to branch into consulting. Questions that you'll think about when you are solving problems for clients are, particularly in my space, if I'm looking at a retailer, Pick and Pay, for example, how can they process payments faster? How can they reduce their costs? Not just payments costs, but their day-to-day overheads. How can they reduce those? How can they improve their customer experience to ensure that they're not only attaining new customer bases, but they're retaining the customer base that they've already, grown and attained? How do they then continue improving their customer experience? How do they increase their revenue? I touched on this a bit earlier. How do they then, a step further, increase their profit margins? Because increasing revenue is one thing, but if your costs are also increasing, your bottom line won't move at all. So you think about things like this. If you're more on the qualitative side of things, is this company meeting compliance regulations? If it is a small merchant that is maybe in the, let's think of a tavern in a township. Are they meeting the regulations? Do they have the proper certifications to be able to sell alcohol? All of these things are things that you think about as a consultant. So there is ways to bridge your technical learnings from your undergrad or your honors degree into building strategies. It's taking the technical knowledge that you have a step further by asking the deeper questions that help us then answer um, answer these complex situations, complex questions, complex problems as well. So you're able to make the two coexist. It's not something that is hard. I want to highlight this because you'll find that maybe an internal auditor wants to branch into consulting and thinks that maybe their finance and business background and auditing background is not something that equips them to be able to build strategies and solve these complex problems. You are able to find ways to interlink them. Earlier, I spoke about a medical doctor moving into consulting. You're able to use your healthcare experience to then build strategies for medical aids. You're able to build strategies for hospitals. You're able to build strategies for any other institution within the healthcare space because of the background that you have. So you're able to interlink a lot of things. Don't think that you need to only corner yourself to a specific industry or corner yourself to a specific topic just so that you can thrive in consulting. Every industry in this world requires someone who can solve a problem for it, whether it's a mobile network company or the biggest hospital in the country. Whatever the case might be, they are experiencing problems, and us as consultants need to find ways to bridge those gaps. Now, like I mentioned in the previous slide, there's a lot of glamour that has been put around what consulting looks like on a day-to-day basis, but what you can actually expect is a whole lot of research, analysis. You're managing stakeholders, especially as you climb the ranks and as you climb the grades. You start holding those client relationships. You start being the point person within your team that the client liaises with in order to get whatever they need from the team. You're doing a whole lot of learning. My daily mantra is that every day is a school day. There's never a day where I go to sleep and I haven't learned something. So consulting is like that. You will stretch your thinking every single day. I've mentioned analysis, I've mentioned research, so I'm not going to belabor those points. Now, like I mentioned earlier as well, the most rewarding thing is being able to see your work and your recommendations, the strategies, the outputs that you delivered, being able to provide actual clarity, being able to drive actual impact and progression within your clients' institutions or organizations. But at the same time, the most challenging is that there's no handbook to consulting. So every complex issue that you find, you're kind of just figuring it out as you go. There's a whole lot of ambiguity. And like I say, every day is a school day. So you're not going to have a handbook to say, this problem you solved like this, you can solve the same, a similar problem the same. There are different aspects to consider amongst different organizations. Maybe the principles might be the same, but there's a lot of nuances that you need to take into consideration to make sure that you're properly serving the different clients that you are delivering projects for. So that is sometimes a challenging aspect, or you find that maybe I'm actually experiencing that on one of the projects I'm working on now. There are 3 stakeholders that have a big say in the sign off of the outcomes that we're working on, but they're all speaking different languages. One wants a roadmap, one wants a strategic report, one wants a board pack that they can take to the board within the next 6 weeks. Who do we service? That's when you need to determine what the actual scope is in writing, because if these stakeholders aren't aligned, you'll find yourself burning out because of scope creep, because everybody wants something and you're trying to make everybody happy. So it's an interesting industry or interesting profession to find yourself in, because you have to manage these different expectations, different stakeholders, different needs and wants, and make sure that you're also firm that you told me that you want a roadmap. That's all I'm going to give you. So it does become challenging in that regard, especially when you're trying to still keep all your clients or all the stakeholders within that specific organization happy. Another thing that is challenging that I didn't highlight on the slide, it's a busy industry. It's a busy profession. Within the accounting and audit space, they know when they're going to be busy. They know that financial year end is their busy period. In consulting, every season is busy season because you're working on a different project all the time, which means that you need to be mentally prepared, something I wasn't prepared for when I was in your position. You need to be mentally prepared for the long hours. Sometimes you're putting in weekend work. Do set boundaries. That's a mistake I didn't that's a mistake I made when I was very fresh into consulting, where I would work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and I was basically killing myself. Since then, I have improved. I've been able to set boundaries, etc. But it wasn't easy to get there. So set boundaries, but also be prepared for the long hours, the long work. Your partner can tell you today that priorities have changed and the PowerPoint presentation that you were working on today needs to be put on ice because the client actually wants an emergency workshop for something else tomorrow. And you need to be agile in navigating that situation. And it happens quite a lot. Don't think that it doesn't happen often. So it is a very challenging and gruesome space to be in. So mentally prepare yourself for that because that is something that nobody warned me about. So I'm grateful that I can warn you about that as well. Any questions before I move forward? Awesome. I'm going to take silence as golden and I'm going to move on to the next slide. Now, how do you stand out? How do you break into the industry? Good grades can get you in the door, but consulting is not something that you can thrive in simply by good grades. You need a certain level of collaboration, a certain drive to create impact. And a lot of the questions, especially within the graduate programs, a lot of the questions are around driving impact, being able to work towards the betterment and the improvement and the benefit of your clients. That's what they want to see. So grades are one component. Your results are only going to get your profile in the door. What matters is how you think and the vision that you have, not just for South Africa and the companies that are operating in South Africa, but also for the world at large, particularly in the big four firms where you do sometimes find yourself working on projects across borders as well. I work very closely with the India team, who are also very well versed within payments. So I'm able to then understand the India landscape, the India economic landscape, payments landscape, and then my South African background as well. So you have to be able to see how you can create that impact beyond the borders of the country that you're in, beyond the industry that you're in. Think big. Think very big. The most absurd of ideas and thoughts are what make you a strong consultant. Your strong academics, yes, but leadership is something they look at. Have you held um, leadership roles within the past? It doesn't need to be anything fancy. It could be the captain of a rugby team. It could be the head of a ministry at church. It could be being a firstborn child. Those are things that show you as a leader. Take as someone who takes initiative. Don't just sit back, or you're not someone who just sits back and waits to be told what to do. You saw a problem and you made a plan. You saw a gap and you found a way to fill it. And these are things that you highlight when you want to get into the consulting industry. Communication skills. I highlighted this earlier, but how you communicate what you're thinking, both verbally and written. Are you able to speak well and articulate the message that you want to make to your audience well? Are you able to write such a strong and rich report, such a strong and rich PowerPoint presentation that even if you are the most junior on the team, you're able to have this maybe land up on an executive's table and they're still going to be so impressed with what you're saying, coming in cold, no context to anything that might be the foundation for that report, but they're able to say, hey, this kid actually makes sense. Hey, this kid actually makes a good point. Are you able to communicate your thoughts, ideas, and messages well? Problem solving ability. I think I've spoken about this a lot. But lastly, curiosity. Do you want to continuously learn? Do you ask, what else? What is the next probing question? Okay, so what? Why is that happening the way that it is? And you go through this, or you go down this rat hole of wanting to learn more and more and more, especially when it comes to the industries that you want to thrive in or specialize in, or the problems that you're trying to solve. Are you naturally a curious person? These are things that they look for when they're looking at you as a candidate within the consulting sphere. It's something that will make or break you as a consultant. You don't want to find yourself just coming in and thinking that your technical knowledge is enough. Are you wanting to learn more? So I think to highlight, I mentioned this at the beginning of the conversation as well, that you guys sitting in the room and your involvement within the APSIP student chapter already gives you an advantage, because it shows that you have initiatives. It shows that you take yourself, your career, your development seriously. That is what recruiters want to see. That is what hiring managers want to see. Those are your differentiating factors, the secret sauce that you want to go in with and lead with, apart from the good grades. Your good grades can only get you so far. So consulting isn't just about potential, it's more about performance. How do you sorry, it's more about potential than it is about performance. So you don't need to be in the best you don't need to be the best in the room. Rather, you need to be the one who wants to be the best in the room. And that's what makes you someone who stands out amongst all the candidates. There's so many people who want to be in consulting, but there's very few people that make it. So your curiosity and the lengths that you're willing to go to be different, to grow, to advance yourself, to develop yourself, not just technically, but those soft and hard skills. Those are what make you stand out when trying to break into the industry. I've written here as well, growth mindset. It's important because, as I mentioned, getting the good marks is great. But what are you doing day to day to help you develop, to help you learn more, to help you treat every day like it is a school day, to help you understand something that you didn't know before, that you can go and share with your team as well? These are things that help you stand out. I am going to pause for any questions at this stage. If there aren't any hands raised, I will then continue to the next part. Yes, M. Sitolemela.
Yes, you mentioned having the ability and skill to write a rich report. So my question is, how often do you use AI in your work?
So consultants use AI a lot nowadays, but not for the reasons that have been in the news. I think all the big four firms have been in hot water for like creating thought leaderships and stuff from AI and literally plugging and playing that into what they give their clients. But more than anything, being able to learn how to use AI responsibly is important. We all have co-pilot licenses at work, and we use it on a day-to-day basis, whether it is maybe to proofread something that you've read, or sometimes you're able to ask it, hey, I'm trying to build a slide that has 1, 2, 3 components. Give me a picture of how I can then build the slide to make it rich enough for me to be able to then, populate with the right information that I have to send to my client. So you're able to use it for helping you build designs for slides, helping you proofread your work. If you really are pressed for time, you're able to help you research stuff. But what I would say, because this is what I do, what I would say, if it gives you particular sources for a specific topic that you're looking at, go and actually read the sources. Don't use what AI is giving you. And I'm quite sure that's something you guys have heard when building your assignments and stuff at school as well, that go to the source, let it help you find the source, and then you're able to apply your thinking and translate that into whatever valuable output you want to create for your client. But AI is used every day as a consultant, literally. You just need to use it responsibly so that you don't get yourself or your company into trouble, particularly with the news and with clients who might pull out of big contracts that you have with them. I hope that answers your question. Hanyane?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
So, given, and I'm asking on behalf of APSIP UNISA, Given
Okay.
that ABSIP UNISA saw that gap within UNISA and there is no consulting club or student structure within the institution, um, I'm just wondering how then would you recommend us as the executives structure how should we structure ourselves or behave or engage that, let's say we all want to get into consulting, oh, that makes us better candidates for for consultancy firms. What can we do and um how can we move forward to make sure that we are attractive in that sense?
Right. So firstly, get good marks. Get good marks, firstly. Secondly, work on those hard and soft skills. So I only spoke about communication here, but think about your ability to break down problems, your teamwork. APSIP, you guys are doing well. You don't need to even go and convince them that you don't that you know how to work in a team. You guys are showing that you work in teams. Another thing, though, that I would highlight, and I'm happy to propose an additional session for this, but I would like to tag team it with another ex-consultant within the industry, and I believe she'll be speaking to you guys in the future as well. Having mock interviews, right? Being able to do, especially the business case interviews. Those are things that catch people off. So if you know how to approach things like that, you'll be good. More than anything, I don't doubt that you're able to do the work. A lot of people just don't know how to navigate the interview process and think in a way that makes the recruiters trust in your abilities. So get the good marks. You guys know how to work in teams. Hanyane, from what I've picked up, you know how to ask the right questions and think critically. So you're good. I think a lot of people can then learn from that, but also then being able to go beyond and learn how to approach different case interviews. That's where people flunk it. And that's what will make you stand out when you're preparing for the interviews and even going into consulting, because those case interviews are based off of everyday problems that we are solving. If you already know the foundation of how to solve those problems, you don't need to have all the right answers. But if you have the foundation on how to approach them, it's not even going to be a hard decision to make to hire you.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. And I think in just also beyond my efforts to maybe have another session with you alongside Yolandi, because we've actually done something like this on our YouTube channels as well. But beyond that, YouTube has a plethora of different case interviews. I think MasterCard as well, and think PwC. McKinsey might as well. Check their websites. You'll know what I'm talking about when I'm referring to case interviews. Learn how they think through how they approach the answers that they give you for those interviews. And like I said, we can always organize a mock interview to see how that works. Practice those often. If you're going to have every 2-3 months or a quarter, it's important to learn how to do that. Another thing with the communication skills, yes, you guys aren't a public speaking community, but have a lot of impromptu speaking engagements. Have PowerPoint deck competitions and get somebody to judge that, where you're given a specific topic and how do you translate that into a PowerPoint deck. Those are things that would help you, things that I wish I was exposed to when I was in your position. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to then move on. I think we are good for time, so we're great. Another question that I get asked a lot is, how do you network? And I mentioned just now as well, then the case interview prep. Networking, I spoke about this at another APSIP student chapter last night as well. Networking isn't just about having a list of names to reach out to when you need something, but it's about building genuine relationships. I got back into strategy and based off of the networks that I built. I didn't apply for my job to come back. I picked up the phone, called my former boss. We still had an incredible relationship. And she said, babes, come home. So you build authentic relationships. I'm meeting for lunch with my former boss from Nedbank next week, not because I need anything from him, but because I actually want to build a relationship with him. Who knows? I might move to wherever he is now, because he's also since then left Nedbank, but who knows? I might move there within the coming years. You're building a genuine relationship. Your network could be people who even pay for you to advance your studies, sponsors, mentors. All of these are people that you need in your corner that can speak life into your career, introduce you to the right people, get you access to things that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to get into. So be intentional about building networks. Your APSIP community is your first line of contact when it comes to networks. Your lecturers, graduate recruitment events, conferences, seminars, all of these things are things that can help you tap into greater networks. Cold messages, which a lot of people actually aren't afraid to send anymore. I believe you guys sent me a cold message as well. You reach out to the professional that you've researched, you send a message, you ask for insights. That's it. People run away when you start asking them for jobs. Yesterday, I got overwhelmed by the people who asked me for jobs. I'm not a talent acquisition person. I can't help you with a job. What I can help you with is insights to help you make the right decisions. If I know anything, I will definitely share it, but I'm not in HR, I'm not in talent acquisition. So you go and you ask these particular professionals that you aspire to be, that you look up to, that you think you can learn from. You ask them for insights, ask them for a coffee. I love coffee. Offer me a coffee. Let's have a conversation about my journey on a one-on-one basis. Love that stuff. They don't like the formal, now I must hold your hand and now I need to guarantee you a job. That is the worst way to approach networking. You send a cold email. You send a cold message like you guys did. Good afternoon. This is who I am. This is what I'm about. I would really appreciate 15 minutes of your time to be able to pick your thoughts on A, B, and C, to be able to pick your thoughts on this particular profession, to be able to pick your thoughts about what I can incorporate into my current student journey that will set me up for success when it comes to hunting for a job. Trust me, the worst that people can say is no. The worst that people can do is ignore your message. That is the worst thing that they can do. You're not going to die. So send the cold messages. Make sure to expand your network by any means necessary, because at some point your hustle needs to transition from you making a name for yourself and proving yourself to having people be able to vouch for you. And that's what your network would do. You don't have to go in and do 37 interviews to get the role anymore, because somebody in your network has vouched for you and put in a good reference for you. At some point, you won't even need to apply, like I just said for myself as well. And like I mentioned as well with case interviews, practice. Be able to speak through how you've broken down these problems, how you've approached these cases. Mental maths, they will catch you out, catch you out with this. I struggled with that when I first started applying for consulting, roles. Mental maths is important. They're gonna ask you if I included 15 more workstations in my workshop and my overheads were this, how much percent would my revenue grow, for example. So focus on your mental maths. If you improve your mental maths, it will also help you improve how you approach your case interviews. They're not asking for the right answer by the decimal, but they are asking for a very accurate estimate of what the answer would be. They need to be able to trust you to run numbers at the top of your head, to be able to speak to financial decisions, and speak to insights that are required for the that would inform the direction of a particular business or organization. I've spoken to business problem solving. This will all be helped with by case interviews. So do case interviews. There are a plethora of them online, sooner rather than later, because yeah, I'm speaking from experience. Start with those sooner rather than later, especially at the onset of this consulting community that you guys are building. So start those conversations with your network, practice consistently. If you can't do weekly, do monthly, bi-monthly, etc., and be able to think in a way that portrays you as structured and that helps you, come across as someone who thinks logically. Okay, so a question that I was asked quite a lot as well during the last few years was, why did I choose consulting over finance? Considering that I did a BCom finance degree, I could have easily gone into consulting. To be honest, one is not better than the other. You just focus on different skills when it comes to the different ones. So finance goes very deep, very specialized, whereas consulting then helps you think a bit more broadly. So I mentioned that my investment management honors degree had a lot of valuation, modeling, etc., derivatives, all of that stuff, which is very specialized, and that works for a lot of people. However, the consulting side helps you think a bit more broadly, where it's a bit more general. You're thinking more transformation, you're thinking problems, you're thinking strategy. I'm not saying you can't do one without the other. You can be able to combine both. I think you'll become a powerhouse if you're able to combine both. I know people personally who have been able to do that. So it's not one or the other. Rather, just find strengths across the two industries that allow you to build the best skill set for yourself. Someone who is able to understand finance, for example, can communicate strategic recommendations. They're also then able to create impact within any organization, whether it's a bank, a fintech, whatever startup you might find yourself engaged in, or even a consulting firm. So there's not one that is better than the other. Both of them create impact in one way or the other. Just make sure that you're in a place that highlights your strengths, or if you want to challenge yourself, a place that will help you turn your weaknesses into strengths as well. But what actually interests you? Because within the finance space, think trading, think investment banking, think quantitative analysis. Why can't I speak on a Friday afternoon? Think quantitative analysis, think all of that. Whereas in consulting, it's just a little different. The business acumen is still important, but the level of work is just a bit different. So there's not one that is more superior than the other. Think of both as complementary. I happen to lean on a lot of people that are in the finance industry when I'm trying to get a sounding board, when I'm trying to solve a problem. I pick their brains as well. So you're able to utilize both to create the most impact within any organization that you find yourself in. Another very common question that is asked is, what skills do I need to become a consultant? I have, I think, made one or two videos about this on my YouTube, but they are quite outdated. But I think the principles still remain the same. You need to solve problems. You need to have commercial and business acumen. You need to have that leadership and teamwork ability, the quantitative literacy, which is why they look at, specific degrees. I'm not saying, though, that you're limited to only those degrees, but they do look at certain degrees that help you think quantitatively. Are you comfortable with numbers? Are you able to analyze and interpret data? Are you able to understand financial information that companies have? Do you have that, quantitative literacy that is required? Are you able to adapt? Being able to adapt in unfamiliar environments? Are you able to adapt in vague and ambiguous environments? Are you able to think and a content shift from one idea to another quickly? You can't afford to be rigid in consulting. You need to be able to be malleable. Think of yourself as Play-Doh, where you squeeze it and it goes into one shape. The next day, you pat it flat on a table and it thrives like that. So you need to be able to adapt to different environments. Sometimes you'll find that one day you're working at the client site, one day you're working in your base office. You need to be able to adapt to the different environments. One day you're working on a payments project. The next you're working on a regulatory project. You need to be able to adapt, context shift, etc. Because in all of that, like I said, the principles still remain the same, that you think in a certain way, you are curious, you apply your knowledge in a certain way, but you need to then be able to navigate different industries, different problems, etc. All of these things, I have no doubt you guys are able to do, especially as people who have already thought ahead to identify a gap within UNISA that you guys don't have a consulting club. You guys are already on the right path. I have no doubt that this is something that you would thrive in, but these are then those skills that they really do look for. And there's more that I've mentioned about speaking well, etc., working in teams, leadership, leading self, not just your team, but leading yourself as well. These are all things that are important. So it's not just about the technical knowledge, that is just the tip of the iceberg, but it's how you work with others, how you think, and how you then present yourself within the firm as well, within your team, on social media, whatever the case might be. It's who you are outside there that people might know or might come across, might experience. It's knowing everything, getting 100% is nothing if you can't present yourself well, if you can't share insights well, if you can't work with people well, then you're already set up for failure. Okay, so this is my last slide, and then we can open up for any other questions that the floor might have. But words of wisdom, things that I wish I knew sooner, things I wish I knew earlier. Your degree only opens the door, but your curiosity determines how far you will go. Getting in the door is one thing. How you act and behave once you are in that room, once you have passed through the door, that's what determines how quickly you will grow and how far you will go. Rejection is not failure. You're going to start out as an inexperienced consultant. The feedback that you're going to receive might be harsh if you're a very sensitive person. They might say that they hate your slides. They might say that they look horrible. They might say that your research is missing certain components. It's not failure. It is feedback. Use that feedback to go and iterate your work so that you're able to deliver something better the next day or the next 2 days, etc. Build relationships early, not just in your firm, but outside. Keep together as an APSIP community. You guys are going to, at the end of the day, go to different firms. You're going to need each other. You're going to need each other's knowledge. You're going to need to be able to lean on each other's strengths. Be able to use that as a career accelerator. In the teams, you might be brainstorming and say, yeah, we need to understand, how the political sphere impacts the performance of our clients. Somebody spoke about how they're studying something within the political space. You then pick up the phone and say, you were in my cohort. Can you weigh in on this? You don't obviously expose sensitive client information, but you're able to pick their brain. So accelerate your career by leaning on the relationships that you've built within this community, within your immediate team at work, within your greater networks as well, your mentors, people that you happen to work with at church, people that you volunteer with in other initiatives that you happen to work in, whatever the case might be, use that as an accelerator. Seek mentors. Seek mentors. These can be lifelong mentors or mentors for a season. There are mentors that won't be there for a lifetime, but they'll help you through specific seasons of your career or of your academic journey. Don't just wait to get a consulting or rather a mentorship call from the faculty or whatever. Get people that can mentor you and hold your hand through this. They don't need to be consultants, but they need to have been able to navigate career paths in a way that you would want to as well. Maybe it would be a blessing if they aren't consultants. That way your thought process is expanded a bit more. Take ownership and accountability of your work. I can only trust you if you've proven to me that you are reliable, you get the job done, you finish what you start. And that, you might ask me, how do I prove that to a recruiter? How do I shine within, the application phase as someone who is reliable? If you are able to finish a project at work or at school, if you are able to work on an initiative and see it through from beginning to end, those are things that you can highlight to say, I'm reliable. I finish what I start and I do it well. These are things that you want to highlight when you're navigating the consulting space. Now, for UNISA students, I believe you guys you come from vast different backgrounds. Some of you are working, some of you are parents, some of you are leading households, some of you have family responsibilities, you have financial pressures, etc. Please, and I beg you, please don't compare your journeys to the person next to you, because success is not about the most perfect of circumstances. It's rather about how you consistently show up every day for your own progress, for your own growth. So if there's anything in closing that I want you to remember today, like I mentioned at the beginning, your starting point doesn't determine your destination. If anything, it's only a stepping stone that helps you reach whatever your destination is. So whether you are at UNISA or you further your studies in any other institution, what ultimately would make you different from any other applicant, any other candidate, is how curious you are, your resilience, your accountability and ownership, like I just mentioned as well. Those are what would give you a competitive advantage, amongst the other tips that I gave you throughout this presentation. But those are things that give you the competitive edge amongst the sea of candidates that would be applying. So invest in your skills. Invest in your network, invest in your mentors, and most importantly, invest in yourself. Be able to manage yourself, be able to lead yourself, be able to pour into yourself, be able to selfishly build skills, make sacrifices for you to be a better person. Show up for your life. And this is a message that I continue preaching even on my social media platforms, that every day is an opportunity to show up for yourself. Opportunities will always arrive, but if you aren't ready for them, if you aren't continuously improving yourself for them, for the time that they come, you are going to miss out on them. So have the courage every day to invest in yourself, invest in your networks, invest in your knowledge base, all of that. Because beyond your degree, which is just the entry ticket to this profession and any other profession, what you bring to the table is what's important. So have the courage to take those risks on yourself, to invest in yourself, and all of that jazz. Yeah, so I've come to the end of my song and dance. I'm happy to continue answering questions with the time that we do have. I believe that a lot were answered during the session that we already had, but I'm happy to continue staying on and having a conversation with those who might have other questions that they might need answered as well. Hanyani.
Sorry, I keep asking questions.
No, please don't apologize. It makes me feel like I'm speaking to someone. So thank you.
No problem. So there was an initiative we technically wanted to start, and as perhaps that we have actually spoken to some consulting clubs. I think it was at the time it was the UP Consulting Club of Wits. I don't recall which one because we spoke to a few of them.
Mhm.
And a vision I kind of had for a long time was that it would be great if we could get like students to actually be like consultants or practice being consultants in real time before they get into the consulting space. So what that means is like, let's say there's a student who sells refurbished iPhones and laptops, and we go to them or they inquire of us. We modify and enhance certain things, like maybe how they handle payments, their marketing. We give them advice in terms of marketing. We show them whatever expertise we have. So you'd have your person who's studying physics, who comes in with a perspective that they gain from studying physics, or as you mentioned, someone studying engineering. And that was a goal that I have had for a while, and certainly other consulting clubs to do that. Obviously, the students aren't getting paid because, like, these
Right,
are
of
small
course.
businesses. It would be great if we could get to that level because I know I've heard in Europe that the student consulting clubs are actually getting paid for
Okay.
their services. But that's long term. what would you suggest we do, especially given that I think it was the Vids chairperson who told us that they tried and it failed, simply because there wasn't, I guess, enough interest or engagement from any of the student businesses or anything like that. Technically, we could also go to like maybe like someone who owns a spaza shop in a township
Yes.
area. But what would you suggest if we wanted to do that? We wanted to reignite that. What would you suggest from your experience that we do, or we approach it, or yeah, how do we get started? What's the blueprint, and how do we sustain it in the long term?
Okay. So the first thing, I've never been part of a consulting club. I don't think UJ had one at the time that I was still there. I think they formally started one a year or two ago. So I'm not going to speak from a consulting club perspective, but I will give what I would do if I were in your shoes. Firstly, I would get a mentor who is an MBA student, because this is actually what they do within their MBA degree. This is one of the projects that they have. By then, you'll be able to get access to clients who they also don't get paid, to clients being businesses that they've identified that would help you with companies that you can, create a list of. So that would be my first line of contact. So you either get a mentor or you speak to MBA lecturers, not just at UNISA, but across the board, who will help you identify businesses that have been worked on projects before that maybe might need that extra bit of insight that you guys could then work on. Then, yes, like you're saying, approaching student businesses, you can't force people to be excited about solving problems for their business, because sometimes you being able to solve problems means more work for them, means more work that they need to pour into their strategies, into their marketing, etc. So maybe that's why the initiatives don't necessarily live long, but it's not this is not for me to say give up on student businesses. I think it's a great thing that you guys are doing with that. So continue knocking on doors within the within the student space. Get then in touch with your MBA, MCOM, business masters, lecturers, and cohort. That way they're able to bring you into some of that stuff. Also, if you happen to want to do your MBA or do your masters in anything of that sort, you already have an idea of what that's going to look like. You could also ask to job shadow. It might be a bit hard with the bigger consulting firms because we do have a lot of sensitive client information that we get exposed to, and letting you in as students for maybe your 4-week vac in June, it might bring risk towards the company and the clients that we serve. But if you're able to go to the smaller scale consulting firms and be able to solve problems with them, that would be great. If you can't find actual live businesses, create scenarios. It goes back to the case interviews. Create those interviews, create those scenarios that help you then be able to solve these problems. But to be honest, if I was a student running a business, I would love the free help and insights. It would be great for me, but it all depends on where I want to grow my business and the amount of effort I'm willing to put into the growth based off of the insights that you've given me. So more than anything, also a very big mantra of my life: knock until a door opens. Really go to the spaza shops in the informal settlements, go to the small to medium-sized businesses, go to a retailer. Just look at one spa branch and say, at month end, you guys could initiate 1, 2, 3. Observe their business for a month. Literally just go and be flies on the wall. Obviously, with managers' consent, being able to, get insights from them, etc. Do that. I don't think any company, maybe I'm speaking once again for myself, I don't think any company would say no to insights, as long as you give them actionable steps to actually, action whatever insights you have given and the problems that you're asking them to solve or helping them solve. Yeah, so I think I've given you a few different avenues, 3 or 4 now, of things that I would do if I happen to be in your shoes.
Thank you very much. That was very valuable.
Awesome. Mapefo, if you are speaking, you are on mute. Okay, okay.
Good afternoon. Sorry, I'm using a phone,
No,
so
no problem.
it freezes sometimes. So I'm struggling to unmute. Good evening. Are we still in the? Oh, it's still the
It's still
afternoon.
afternoon. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Mapi for Sane. I'm an honest student. I just want to, maybe it's not a good idea, but to answer on Hanyani, the previous speaker.
Mhm.
We all have different, what do you call this? Disciplines. We actually in different disciplines. And the other thing that will help us to grow, it's not to undermine our abilities, and then also the people around us that ask for like help, minor help in our field of study. I think that one also can help us in growing our what do you call this? Our network. Because truly speaking, you mentioned that most of the clients that we have are references. So the more we intend to help other people, and then they will refer those. That's how we normally get clients. Okay, just a little bit of background. I'm a construction health and safety officer, and then I'm studying environmental management. So what happened in my previous what do you call? In my previous experience is that I'll get to site, and then I'll have subcontractors in a project. Then they will ask for my services. So that's how I actually get to opening up a consulting company, because of people that are approaching me that I work with. So we must not wait for bigger pictures, where else we can start with little things and then grow big with those little things. And remember, the small companies that we start in, they grow, and then you find in 3 years the company that you've assisted as a subcontractor is now a main contractor. So now you have a client to assist in check or whatever services that you are actually uh, specializing in. So I think we just have to start small. It's good if you can start big, like you've mentioned in the presentation. But even the small things, they grow into larger things. Thank you so much for a well presented and articulated. I know myself, I'm not a good speaker, but I love speaking. I'm just one of those people who love speaking, but who cannot articulate themselves well. But I just hope, Puguti, you heard what I've said, and uh, the advice goes out there so that we can just do this thing to start small and then go huge. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
everyone.
Mapefo.
And the questions, yes, the questions
So,
that you've been asking, me myself, I'm yeah, I'm someone who's very small, but I've got a very big vision for myself and the company that I've actually registered for as a check consultant. Yes, we just have to do it anyway. For some
yeah.
of us, we have to go through the process. So allow the process to actually assist us to grow. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mapefo, and thank you for those insights that you definitely have to start somewhere. And well done on starting your own business. That is massive. I think a lot of people struggle to get the courage to do that. So definitely big ups. And you do articulate yourself well. So please don't speak down on yourself. I thoroughly enjoyed the little bit that you have shared with us in the last few minutes. You do articulate yourself well. So I think you're on the right track.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Awesome. Awesome.
And
Oh,
then lastly, sorry.
yes.
Are you gonna share the slides with us?
Yes, I will. I'll share the slides. I'll speak to the Expo team. If you guys want them, I'll definitely share them with you.
As I believe, let's assist each other, because sometimes you need to refer,
Of course.
you know.
Of course.
Yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
I'll definitely share those. I'll liaise with the Exco team that I was speaking to when we set up the session.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Awesome. Oh, Sweli, sorry, I missed your name at the beginning.
No, it's all right. It's Onge.
Lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet you as well. I just have a question. You mentioned that management consultants, of course, look at sensitive data. I was trying to understand the legality around management consulting. Is there a specific board or license that you need to practice? And what does no
No, so you don't need, there's no professional body, there's no license, there's nothing like that. However, for example, if you are solving a problem for Netbank, you can't go and leak that information to the outside world that has client data or that has data that FNB can then, leech off of. So you are bound to confidentiality in any client engagement that you work on. So when I say sensitive data, it means after that engagement, this data is not something that you can refer to anymore. You're not allowed to share it. I am not allowed to tell my boyfriend the insights or the details of my engagements. He might know at a high level what problem I'm solving, but he won't know my client. He won't he just knows that I drive to Rosebank for my client. Besides that, he doesn't know anything, right? So you are bound to confidentiality. Some clients are actually very adamant on you even signing an NDA as well. So when I say confidential client data, sensitive client data, it's because you can't then go and leak that information elsewhere. You'll find also in a lot of consulting firms, during your onboarding training, they teach you how to properly store client data. They teach you that when you have family over, don't leave your laptop unlocked. When you are at a restaurant, face towards, sit at a chair where your laptop is facing a wall, so that somebody who's walking past can't see what you're busy with on your screen because there's confidential information that you're working with. So I hope that answers your question, but anything that you work with as a consultant, you're not allowed to then go and share with greater people. And most, if not all the time, you will actually sign an NDA, a non-disclaimer agreement.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Anke. Sapolwetu. Sorry, almost butchered your name there.
I know it's fine. No, I just wanted to ask you if you could, you could elaborate with us on your past projects that you've done in the strategy field. Because for me, I've seen that KPMG has like a deal advisory graduate program, and then also EY does a strategy and transaction graduate program. But since you're also in the payments and transaction field, I just wanted to know what the day-to-day in that space looks like, or what projects you guys might be working on.
Okay, so since I joined from my junior to now, there's been a lot of projects that we've worked on, particularly myself. I remember the first project I was on in 2021. The client was a bank, and we had to do a value delayering exercise, basically to see how best to optimize their costs because they weren't making money. That's one project. There's another project where our client is a big retailer, or was a big retailer. They weren't making any growth, amidst the different campaigns that they're running, all of that stuff, that's more on a qualitative, side, where you're able to then go in and understand what serves their client best, what initiatives, what LSMs do their clients work in, and how to best connect with those specific customers, within that retailer. And then there's certain projects where you work with the regulators of this country. Think of FSCA, think of the big, regulators within this country. SARS could be one. Yeah, there's so many different big regulators who make decisions who actually don't have the expertise internally to make those decisions. They then ask PwC or any other consulting firm to come in and do that. Then, like you're mentioning, there are deals teams. Strategy and also has a deals, half of the team as well, where you come in, this company wants to buy the other one, or it wants to sell the other one, or it wants to buy a subsidiary of whatever. Then you're able to come in, value the company, help them make decisions on how best to acquire this company. Once they've acquired it, how do they transform the entire workforce? So there are different companies, there are different types of projects that you happen to find yourself on, particularly in payments transformation. Think banking, think fintechs, think the big regulators, the big banks, the FIC, all of those people. Those are then clients that you most ordinarily would provide proposals to. Or you even think of a retailer who has been struggling to kick off their e-commerce offerings, and you're able to go in and say, how can they then accept payments on their e-commerce platform? Let's say Checkers 360 has had a fraud breach when it comes to their payments, and their payments have been settling into a different account that is not theirs. They were able to be hacked. Then we come in and we look at security, cybersecurity. How do we then, reinforce cyber resilience within their payments, processes, etc. So there's a lot that you can do, and I think no project is the same. I mentioned earlier there are different nuances. It might be a similar project, the approach might be similar, but there are different things within the clients that you need to take into account when approaching these engagements. So you're not limited. There are a lot, but think strategy, think acquisitions, think business turnaround, think growth, think transformation, and everything in between. That's what you'd be exposed to amongst the different graduate programs that you find yourself in a consulting firm.
Oh, okay. No, thank you so much, man. I think I really benefited from your experience here. But then also, I just wanted to ask one more follow-up question.
Mhm.
As someone starting out here, do you think it's best for me to, in consulting, branch out to these big consulting firms? Obviously, like McKinsey and Co., BCG, and I forgot this other name, like Oliver.
Yes, Oliver Wyman. Yeah.
Yeah, Oliver Wyman. I've been in talks with them, but always people in the consulting firm always go for these big firms for
Mhm.
exit opportunities. Do you think that's also like a good approach to gain like expertise there at the big firms and then exit out to other let's say elite boutiques or smaller branches?
I mean, it all depends on where you want to take your career, right? I think it was Hanyane earlier who asked, would I start in a big consulting firm, like the likes of the Big Four or your MBB firms, MBB being McKinsey, Bain, and BCG, or your Oliver Wymans, etc. Or if I would start in a small boutique firm, I think there's one called Litsema and the likes of that, where they're more specialized and a bit more smaller. It depends on where you want to take your career. There are so many exit opportunities for someone in consulting. You can go into industry, you can start your own thing, you can start consulting independently. When I was first at PwC, there was a manager that I was reporting to who has now started her own independent consultancy firm. So you could literally do anything. You can go and be a head of a department in a bank. You can go and start your own fintech or be a manager in a fintech. There's so much that you can do because there's nothing consulting doesn't teach you. And I'm not saying that to hype up the profession, but there's nothing consulting doesn't teach you. So you can definitely plan your exit opportunities, be selfish, maybe say you're going to be there for 5 years or 7 years and then go into something else, go into industry, maybe even go and work for one of your clients. technically your client is not allowed to poach you, but you can find your way around that, So you are allowed to find exit opportunities. Remember, you need to make your career your own, right? And the decisions that you make need to be selfish. Your family, your friends, even the company that you work for might want to speak into the decisions that you make on how you navigate your career. But at the end of the day, where you see yourself in 5, 10, 15 years is what matters. And the decisions you make today will help you get there. If you want to be an entrepreneur, consulting into entrepreneurship is something that happens quite often as well. So big consulting firms, I would say, are great. Your network is a lot wider, like I mentioned earlier as well. The small boutique ones, you do specialize a lot more. So the industries that you are exposed to aren't as big as the bigger firms. But if you want to specialize and that's what you want to do, then go to a consulting firm that specializes in what interests you as well. So it all depends on where you want to take your career, honestly.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Cool. It's a pleasure. M. Sitolemela. Sorry, what's your name? I've been calling you by your surname the whole session.
Hello again. My name is Muketwa.
Okay. Lovely to meet you, Muketwa.
Lovely to meet you too, Rory. I bundled up some questions, but they're all in the same lane. So, looking back on your journey, given that you studied finance and investment management, and then going from banking to consulting, do you feel the decisions that you made along the way were worth it? Do you enjoy where you've ended up? And when you consider the hours, the pressure, and effort at each stage, do you feel the financial and career rewards have justified the sacrifice? And last one is, what's your next step?
Thanks. That's a very good question. I don't regret the decisions that I've made to get to where I am right now. I'm actually very proud of how I've built my career over the last few years. A lot of people judged my move when I moved back to consulting from banking. But there's a specific reason why. I think the team that I happen to be in banking, a lot of banks actually, you need to be a bit older for that. You need to want to slow down, think building a family, think not having enough time on your hands, think preparing for retirement. That's what I experienced in banking. And I was like, listen, I am too young to live such a mundane and repetitive life. And that's why I left banking to move back into consulting. Right now, I'm unmarried, don't have children. I can work 16 hours a day. Not that I work 16 hours a day for the most part. Let's say between 12 and 14 hours a day. I can do that. If your life is not set up like mine, give it some thought. Make sure that your support structure makes sense for the career. If you have to travel between your grandmother's house and your parents' house all the time, maybe think about that. If you have health constraints, maybe think about that. It's not impossible to thrive with these different circumstances, but think about them, consider them. Financially, I have no regrets. Don't get me wrong, you'll always want more money, but I was able to buy my first property at the age of 22. I started working when I was 22. 3 months after working, I put down an offer on an apartment. I just bought a beautiful car. I've been building a beautiful investment portfolio. Really, the financial rewards, I'm not saying I'm rolling in money. I do have a lot of financial literacy and I'm big on financial health, etc. But you'll get paid for the work that you do as a consultant. As a person, you'll always want more money, but you'll get paid for the work. I can't say the same for banking, but it also depends on where in the banks you're working in. If you happen to be in their CIB clusters, so that's the investment banking clusters, so think wealth, think private wealth investments, etc., trading, all of that stuff, then you will get paid better than someone who's in the retail banking and private banking space. So it just depends really, but I have no regrets with how I've maneuvered my career. Where to next? I might be in consulting for a bit. I do want to go back to school for my master's. So I don't want to make a lot of career moves right now. I do want to stabilize so I can do my master's, finish it, and then after that, think about what might be next. I would like to start my own business at some point. Because I don't want to work for someone forever, but let me finish my master's and figure out what my career looks like after that. And then I'll take it from there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation as well. Before this, I wasn't really into consulting like that. I was leaning more towards the finance side, strictly finance. But thank you and congratulations on your achievements in your car. And
Thank you.
last one, I'm a bit of a petrol head. I like cars, so I'm curious, which car did you get?
It's a VW. It's a T-Cross. I got something that I know will serve me for the next 10 years. Because I don't like changing cars. I drove my previous car for 10 years as well. So it's a T-Cross VW. I know that if I decide to get married and have kids, there can still be a baby seat in the car. So that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Imita?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Yo, please don't call me ma'am. I know I'm old, but I'm not that old.
Apologies. I wanted to ask uh, for someone who doesn't have a mentor, how can they get a mentor?
I'm sure that you have people within whatever industry of interest you have that you look up to. And in the networking slide, I mentioned a few avenues that you could use to build your networks and build your mentorship base. Your first line of contact would be your lecturers. Second line of contact would be people within industry that you cold message. For the most part, people aren't opposed to mentorship if you don't make it too formal. If it's a random check-in here and there, picking their brain when you have a question, etc., it's very easy to maneuver mentoring like that. If you formalize it, usually people feel like they don't have the capacity for it, myself included. Ask me a random question on Instagram from time to time. Happy to have an answer. Happy to have a conversation with you. Ask me to formally be your mentor and have monthly sessions with you. That's a lot of work. So I would approach it in that way, very informal, coffee chats, pick their brain, have a phone call. But look for people who have walked the journey that you want to walk, both academically and professionally, and maybe even in their personal lives. Navigating family, building a successful career, building their academic portfolio, all of that. Look for someone who you aspire to be like, not to be, but to be like, and learn from them. And sometimes mentorship doesn't need to be a personal relationship. Sometimes someone is your mentor just by you observing their life from far. You don't need to have their cell phone number or whatever for you to have this person as a mentor. So there are different levels to mentorship as well. Some of my mentors don't even know I exist, but I am observing them from far, observing their moves, observing their decisions, observing what they put out there, learning from what they put out there, and implementing some of those lessons myself. So you can decide on which one works for you, and make it fit your lifestyle, because mentorship and networking can feel very unnatural. Going up to a stranger and saying, "Hey, I want to learn from you," can feel very unnatural. So try and choose the approach that works best for you. If you are out there, you can cold message and get somebody who is an exec, someone who's a manager in consulting, someone you can learn from day to day. If it's somebody who is actually too busy, a lot of these CEOs and executives are actually too busy. You just observe their lives and their day-to-day walks as well. But don't just find comfort in getting mentors that are from afar. Distance mentors is what we maybe might call them. Also have one or two in your back pocket who you can actually pick up the phone and call, because those are people that will vouch for you in rooms that you need them to vouch for you in. It doesn't help having Barack Obama as your mentor. Great choice, but they don't know you exist.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Cool. We have 5 minutes left. So any other questions before we wrap up? Otherwise, in consulting language, I'm going to give you 5 minutes back in your calendar because that's what we say at work. Imita, your hand is up again.
One last question.
Yes.
Can someone who's pursuing chartered accounting be able to do articles in a consultant firm?
So you won't get your, what is that, recognized portfolio of work, that RP, whatever, RFP stuff, whatever that is. You won't get that in consulting. So if you are working towards your CTA, CA, whatever, go and finish your articles either at an audit firm or at a bank. And then you can branch into consulting after that. You won't get the recognition of prior learning, whatever they call that thing. You won't get it in consulting because the work that we do is very different to the competencies that are required for a CA.
Thank you.
Cool. But you don't need to learn anything after that. There's a lot of people, there are 2 people actually in our team, in my direct team, who did their articles in audit at PwC. When they signed, they then moved into consulting. So you don't think you need to learn anything else or bridge or do a course. As soon as you've signed, you can come through.
Okay, thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Any other questions? If not, I'm going to hand over back to Exco for them to wrap up the session. Once again, thank you for taking the time on a Friday afternoon. And also for those who are ready to listen to this presentation last week, apologies that it needed to be postponed. As I mentioned to the Exco, I have been dealing with a few health challenges, still am, but I definitely think that the worst is over. So I definitely wanted to show up as soon as possible, considering that I had left you guys on ice last week. So thank you for the patience and the understanding as well. But then, yes, Imita.
Zolan, could I get your social